I fly. You've lifted me up, Bruce. Thank you. I think it's pretty amazing. Just to be able to have that much lung capacity. I fly. Okay. So I'm not a singer, really, and that's not why I'm here, fortunately. But I do sing, and I think everybody has a song, and we should all sing, and it doesn't matter whether we're singers or not. We should sing. So, hi there. Hi. So I'm so happy to see faces out in the audience that I know. Judy, thank you for coming. Yeah. Wow. There's an old saying, and that is, teach what you need to learn. I teach relationships, prosperity, health, love, ease. I teach it all because I'm really a student of life, and I need lessons on all of it. And the reason that I'm here today is somewhat of a serious matter, because I found it in my life that I suffered. And I took a look at what I suffered, and I found out it wasn't all just up to me, that there were a lot of other people that suffered, and there was a lot of suffering that went on in my society, and I was conditioned to suffer. So I began to look at that and see what I could do to alleviate that, and I found out that things could be easier, and my experience in life could be easier, and that's why I'm here with you today, to tell you that your life can be easier. There's no doubt about it. It is the truth. Everything is not going to be easy, but I can truly tell you that everything can be easier. That's the profound truth. And if I left at that and you pondered that, do you remember the story of the person who went to the guru and he said, "Guru, teach me." And the guru said, "Okay." He said, "Ponder this." And he said, "Our Father." And the guy just ran off, and a year later he came back and he said, "I'm enlightened." And the guru never got it out, what he was going to say. So if you really just got that your life could be easier and you lived in that, that would be enough. There wouldn't be anything else that I'd have to say today. But since I'm a speaker, I'm going to go on and say something else because I love to talk, and I appreciate this time with you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor. Positive thoughts create what kind of results? Negative thoughts create what kind? Easy thoughts create easy results. You don't hear much about that, do you? No, you don't. And the truth of it is that those things are all true, but they're not true all the time. They're not true all the time. Life is very complex. You can't take one thing and apply it to everything. That's called fundamentalism. When you take a truth and you try to make it fit on everything and everything. And when I found out about positive thinking, it was a big deal for me, and I tried to apply it to everything. I was a fundamentalist positive thinker, and how did that work out? I was very deeply disappointed. It just did not apply to everything. Because I can tell you, I was riding down the road one day, and I was having these really great thoughts because it was an icy day. I am protected. I am loved. I'm a divine child of God. Yay. Isn't life wonderful? Somebody ran into me. Okay. Another time, this was many years ago, maybe 15 years ago, my daughter's boyfriend brought her some silk flowers. I was visiting her in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they were purple silk flowers in a vase, and I thought, Jim would never think to do anything like that. He would never do anything like that. I tell you, this is the truth. I didn't tell him a word about the flowers. Mum's the word on the flowers. Didn't say that to him. I wouldn't say, you'd never do anything like that. When I got home, I will promise you, there was a crystal vase of purple silk flowers there. Isn't he sweet? So I'm just saying that we can't take a thought or a belief and just apply it to everything all the time. I mean, can you imagine going to the doctor and you say, "I've got a cold," and he says, "Okay, well, I've got just the thing. Here's an antibiotic, take it," and you go home and you get well, but you come back the next time and you say, "I've got high blood pressure," and he says, "I'm giving you antibiotic." And then the next time you come in and you say, "I've got a broken foot." "Well, here, I've got it as an antibiotic." "Well, my eyes are dry. I'm going to give you an antibiotic." No. Every disease of the soul has a different kind of medicine, and positive thinking is only one medicine that is applied, that we need to apply at one time. And I say this because it is difficult to be around someone who's a fundamentalist positive thinker, but when we're in New Thought, it's very easy to become one. It is very easy, but it's hard to be around somebody who has this new zealous. I'll tell you this one. It's kind of a sad and weird story, and that is that one night I went into a class that I was teaching, and a woman came in, and she said, well, how are you doing today? And I said, well, I'm doing pretty good. I said, my father died today. And she said, wonderful. And I didn't take anything from it, but the woman really was a fundamentalist positive thinker, and her logo in life, or her mantra, was happy thoughts. And so she was programmed not to really be present with somebody, but just to blurt out a happy thought. You know, I'm a happy thought machine, here I go, dispensing happy thoughts regardless of what the weather is. You know, you don't walk around with an umbrella all the time when it's, in a drought, for sure. You do something else. So today I want to talk to you about the path of ease. And I've developed a philosophy, and that philosophy I call EZosophy. So philosophy meaning the wisdom of is osophy, the wisdom of ease. It is wise to be ease. But what are we when we are not easy-osophist? I say that we are hard, H-A-R-D, hard-aholics. And hardaholics get up in the morning, and the first thing they do when they get up in the morning is they have a heart attack. An H-A-R-D, oh, I gotta get up, oh my gosh, I've gotta get up. This person now has had to get up at the same time for the last 10 years. So the idea is that if you have to get up at the same time and you've been having a heart attack every morning, it's really time to stop, to do something else at the very beginning of the day, because that's what we do. Oh, my to-do list, I've got this, and this. I mean, the mind just starts having a heart attack in the beginning. And we've learned not to do that, but it's very easy to slip back into that habit. Opening thought, heart attack. So what are the primary beliefs in EZosophy? I mean, in heartaholism. The primary belief is life is hard. I'm just letting that one sink in. I know you've never heard that before. You must suffer about it. I mean, you must suffer. I mean, Lord, anything else would be inappropriate. And, I mean, you're American, aren't you? It will never change. Can never change. It will never change. Life is hard. You must suffer about it, and it will never change. This is the cornerstone belief in our culture. This is what people believe. This is what people take to the bank. This is what people think is really, really the truth. And it's not the truth. It's a lie. Now, there are other beliefs, there are other behaviors and other activities that support this life of being a heartaholic. They are, my life is harder than yours and I'll prove it. People seem to really understand what I'm talking about. You go to your friend and say, oh my gosh, and my foot's really hurting. That's okay, honey, my neck went out. I mean, it doesn't matter what you've got, You have a leak in your house, they've got a flooded basement, It's spiritual to suffer about everything. What do we call somebody that suffers about everything? Jewish. A martyr. We call him a martyr. And we are that martyr sometimes. But how hard is it to be around a martyr? It's not easy to be around a martyr. The next one, no pain, no gain. Is that really something that we want to make a guiding life? I mean, I guess if your life is suffering all the time, you want to take that one to the bank. But I wouldn't do that. I like what Jean Houston says. She says, no pleasure, no treasure. I can breathe so much easier to that. Now, it is true that when we have pain, let's go on and learn from it so it can become a gift, so it can become a teaching, so that it can enliven us. But let's not make pain the thing. We can learn from our pain, but we must lead from our joy. Another belief, life is serious. That's why I started out the meditation about this seriousness. People tend to be, have you ever heard a minister get on? I remember John Bradshaw talking about this minister who was in the he was in the lobby, and he was talking to this guy, and they were just having a great time, and he was a minister, and the minister goes, and he gets on his TV show, and he said, his radio show, and he goes, God is with you today. And it's like, what is, here's this guy just talking and having a good time, but, spirituality, those, woo, we are serious, serious, serious. And adults are serious. I remember the first time I walked down New York City. One day, it was a cold day, and everybody had on these dark suits, and they were walking, everybody was walking like, and I'm going, oh my gosh, did somebody died? I mean, everybody looked like they were going to a funeral procession. They were so serious and drab and dead. It's like, what is going on here? I have noticed that in the past few years that we've begun to lighten up as a culture. I mean, you used to go into a bank or a library, and it was like, don't smile, be serious. Adults are serious. All work is hard. Have you bought that one? Yes, I have to get, all work is hard. People believe that, some work is hard. But is all work hard? No, all work is not hard. So you get up in the morning and have this attitude, okay, now I've got to work. Now I've got to do this task. But all work is not hard. And if it is, we can change our attitude about it so it's not that difficult. One time I moved in with a friend, and we fixed up her attic, over the attic. We fixed up her attic, and we finished it, made it into a room. And so I decided that I want to put a herringbone pattern on the roof, on the ceiling, which you go like this with the plaster, and I did it with my fingers, and it all was so fun when I started. And I looked at the whole ceiling, which was probably about the size of this, and I went, I think I'm in trouble. This is just absolutely too much. And then I decided something else. I decided to start singing, and I thought, how can I do this and make it easier? And I thought, well, I really want to lighten up about it. And I started singing a song, and when I did, I finished that with ease. I mean, even if it was physically difficult, just changing my attitude, singing that song, and being willing for a deeper light force to flow through me, I finished it, and I was just laughing and having the best time, going from, oh my gosh, I'm having to do this ceiling, and it's the worst thing that ever happened to anybody, to, oh, delightful, yeah, look at that, boy, I'm really good with these patterns. Another belief is that you have to live in the real world. Now, there are some practicalities that we have to consider when we're alive. We have to get enough rest. We have to eat things. But in terms of the real world, when we hear somebody say the real world, it means get serious. Don't have any fun. Don't be a Pollyanna. And there's a negative and positive side to Pollyanna, but there is a side to it that's welcome. If you don't suffer, you're not a good person. Or using our to-do list to do battle. Honey, today I've got to go to the grocery store, I've got a doctor's appointment, I've got to go to the bank, I don't think I can get this done before I go into work. Honey, today I've got to, wash the cat, take out the garbage, go pick up my kid, on and on and on, go to soccer practice, do this, blah, 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 a million different things. And so then the other person back and forth, and such it's battling with this suffering and this to-do. So there are two kinds of suffering. One is genuine suffering, and that suffering occurs that when we have a loss, a genuine loss, someone dies, our pet dies. There's things that we need to suffer about in the world. Nepal, how can you look at that and your heart just doesn't break? That is genuine suffering. But what about the made-up stuff? That's the secondary stuff. That's the stuff that we believe that is not true, that life is hard. It can never change, and you have to suffer about it. That's the stuff that's made up. So how in the world did we get in this dilemma? I'm going to say that we did it in two ways. The first, I'll tell you a story. In 1998, my Aunt Elba died. She was very wealthy. I was called to the reading of the will. I had been doing my prosperity affirmations. I was really excited to be invited, but I think she couldn't possibly leave me anything. But I got there, and when the lawyer read out the will, he said, you have been left the equivalent in stocks and bonds and cash, $5 million. And I went, oh my gosh. Those affirmations really worked well for me. Those are quite some prosperity affirmations because I hadn't been doing too well until then. And so I closed my church and I published my book and I decided that I was going to move and live around the world. And I moved to Houston and I met my husband 3 weeks later and we ended up getting married. So I didn't do exactly what I had planned to do, which was fine. So when you hear that story, you may have several different kinds of reactions. One kind of reaction would be, wow, nothing like that ever happens to me. Or some people even kind of go through their minds and see if they can think about one of their friends or relatives. No, I've already been through everybody in the family, and nobody's going to die and leave me, anything for sure. And some of you might say, she's so lucky. Some of you say, that is so great, maybe it'll happen to me. I mean, you had some kind of thought. Well, let me just tell you, and there's some kind of story that goes with that. But the truth is, not exactly as I told it, because everything happened just as I told it, except for one thing, and that my aunt left the money to somebody else. So I didn't get the $5 million. Her kids got the $5 million. I didn't, that's right. So the rest, he bought that one up. So the rest of that story is true, but really, basically, the whole story is, with that one thing, the story is a lie. And so the deal is, it's a powerful stories, but stories can be a lie and have a huge influence in our lives. And the story that we have is life is hard. You must suffer about it, and it will never change. That's the story of our culture. And it is an unexamined assumption of life that we carry throughout the Western world. So how did we get this way? That's one aspect through that story. The other one is through conditioning and expectations. One day, I was doing affirmations about feeling okay about myself, feeling important, feeling noticed. And I took a little walk outside my office, and there were these, and that men support and love me. So I'm walking down the street, and all of a sudden, I hear there's this construction site across the street, and I hear these men going, hey, babe, and they're whistling, and they're going, how you doing? And they're waving at me, and I'm thinking, wow, those affirmations are really working well. How great. So I go in my office, and a few minutes later, I had a client come in, and she came in all hot and sweaty off her bicycle, and she said, you won't believe what I just went through. All kinds of sexual harassment. These men were just yelling at me and whistling at me and calling at me, and so this was the same group of men I had been by, of course. And I had expected something entirely different. I got something entirely different. So whether the men should have done that or not done that, that's beside the point. It was that her conditioning where men are bad and they don't act appropriately, and her conditioning and her expectation was that they'll treat me poorly, and they did. So that's how it all happens. It is that we believe a story that's totally a lie, and then we're conditioned and we have expectations that hold this suffering into place, this ego-driven struggle and suffering. Remember, that's what I'm addressing. Because people come and say, oh, Ann, life is hard. And it's like, of course it is. But not what? Not all the time. It's not hard all the time. So the Christian viewpoint, the Jewish viewpoint, has really championed this belief that suffering is desirable, that suffering has been glorified. I mean, we give awards to people who've been through hard times, and often we don't give as many achievement awards. You see somebody that's been hard, and I don't want to denigrate that. I'm just saying, and that's powerful, but that doesn't need to be the only kind of acknowledgement for life. We need to acknowledge people that go through and really have accomplished something good, not just reacted to a bad situation. So what did Jesus have to say about suffering? In Matthew 11:28 through 30, he said, come to me, all who are tired out and carrying burdens, and I will give you rest. I'm going to carry those burdens. Take my yoke upon you. And what kind of yoke it is? It's a light, not a heavy And learn from me, for I am genial and meek in my heart, and you will find rest in your souls. For my yoke is what? Easy. And my burden is light. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. But if someone walked up to you and said, you've got it really easy, would you defend yourself and try to talk them out of it? Would you tell them why your life is hard? Would you feel insulted? I wanted to be able to have somebody walk up to me and say, Ann, you've got it easy, and I would say, yes, I do. I really wanted that, and I can do that. Now, I can suffer, and I do suffer. I do have difficulties. I have anxiety from time to time. I have depression from time to time, but that's why I want to make my life easier. How much time do we have? 1 minute, 2 minutes, 8 minutes?
Whatever you want.
What? I know what the clock says, but I'm not very good. I don't have a great relationship with time. And when I say that, I mean, I love time. Time is wonderful. It's not like I don't want to denigrate time. I'm just saying that I tend to live often more in no time than time. And so no time is, it's okay. So how can you live an easier life? How can you become an EZosophy? Well, one thing you can do is tell your tales of inspiration, not your tales of desperation. Now, it is important to tell about the things that have gone poorly, the tragedies in our past life. We do this in therapy. We move on to a certain point. I mean, for example, if your cat dies, you've had him for 15 years, and you go in and you tell your therapist that's great. Your friends will certainly comfort you. But 15 years later, if you open, somebody says, how are you doing? I just hadn't gotten over my cat dying. It's just, it's at least at that point you can say, wow, I feel really good today because I remember how great my cat was. That's your tale of inspiration, not your tale of desperation. So how can you live an easier life and be an EZosophy? That you can live with a life of benevolence and compassion. There's a story about a Buddhist monk, and he was in Tibet when the Chinese came through. And it was ordered that everyone had to leave the monastery. And so this one monk wouldn't leave. And so the head soldier goes back to the warlord and he says, well, I can't get this monk to go anywhere. He says, well, did you threaten him? Yeah, I threatened him. And he said, well, go back and tell him that you're going to kill him if he doesn't leave. So the soldier goes back to the monk and he says, I'm going to kill you if you don't leave. And the monk says, well, you don't have to kill me. I'm not leaving. So he didn't want to kill him. So he goes back to the warlord and says he's not leaving even at the threat of death. So the warlord goes up to the monk, and he says, goes to the monastery, gets to the monk. He says, listen, I don't think you know who I am, monkey. He said, look, I could run my sword through you, and I could pull it out, and I would never bat an eye. And the monk said, sir, I don't think you know who I am. You could run your sword through me and pull it out, and I would never bat an eye. He had an easier life because of the benevolence and compassion that he lived, because of his direct connection to the source of safety. So when we live our lives in benevolence of compassion, it won't make everything easy, but it will make everything easier, even to the point of death. It eases the burden that we carry. And so how can we make life easier? We can make it easier by asking ourselves the questions, am I burdening this moment? Am I making this harder than it needs to be? Or can it be easy? If we just stop and question when we notice, and noticing that burden, how does it feel when I'm carrying a burden? It's shoulders are going down, breath is stopping. So just calling into question and asking that question, how would I be doing this if it was easier, even if it's emotionally, not physically? But there are many things that we do externally in the world that there is an easier way to do those things as well. So I do have a mantra, and that mantra is, you've heard me say it in many different ways during this talk, and that is everything can be easy or at least easier. I call that the 8-word miracle mantra. It can be easy if it's made up stuff. It can be easier if it's genuine suffering, because we can reach out to our friends, they can reach out to us, and they help carry the burden. If somebody's not available and you're home and you're suffering, this is what your clue is. If there's nobody around, it means you need to reach in. And there is a strength in there. All of us have been through times that we think, how did we get through that? But there was a strength in us that we tapped into that made it so that we could go through that time and that period without the stress you would have expected, that we could not fall apart, that we could get through that. And so I call this the 8-word miracle mantra. It is easy, it is simple, it is potent. And I think it applies almost everywhere. So what is that? Can somebody tell me what that 8-word miracle mantra is? I've said it, but what is it?
Life is easy.
Wow, you got it. Everything can be easy or at least easier. So to summarize this, I'm probably going to read this. I like what I said here, but I don't think I can say it without reading it. I'm going to read this to you, and that is that we live in a culture that fabricates suffering. Because taking out the trash is not a hardship. Pulling weeds is not a hardship. We may not like to do the things that we have to do, but we have to do them because life is mostly windows. There's only a few mountaintop experiences, maybe 5%. When we get to shine and be on top, but the rest of it is taking out the trash and preparing for that 5 minutes. The rest of it is getting the car fixed. The rest of it is picking somebody up from school. The rest of it is going to school. The rest of it is taking a bath. The rest of it is getting a checkup. I mean, that is what most life is about. And if we make the maintenance and we say, I don't do windows, it's like, well, if you don't do windows, honey, you're not doing life. Because life is windows. That's what we're doing 95% of the time. Don't miss it. This is the way it was designed. Don't miss it. So life is hard, but it's not hard all the time. And the thought that we have to suffer about life to be taken seriously is a lie. We will suffer. But we don't need to create suffering to be a good person. We don't have to wait for the next shoe to fall to think that we can learn the next hardship. I used to remember looking at people in AA, and I was thinking, if I had something like AA and I was an alcoholic, I could go to all these people and I'd have a group of people and have something to work through. But I'm not an alcoholic. And I would look at somebody who got desperately ill, and I'd think, I guess I'd straighten up my health if I had a life-threatening disease. That would really give me motivation. But I just want to say we don't have to have those things in our lives in order to live. Once you get it, of course, learn from it, but we don't have to have that to be good people and to learn. And the idea that we can never change is just a position that we take. It's a stand we take or an intention we make that's against our best interest. And finally, I'd like to say, we can pull ourselves back from a heart attack almost any time if we use the 8-word miracle mantra. And what's the 8-word miracle mantra? Everything can be easy, or at least easier. Everything can be easy, or at least easier. Thank you very much.